I'm Mike Lamneck, and welcome to Music Meanderings. You know, you look at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there's a lot of bands that should be in there that aren't in there yet. We've got a list of 10. Now, there are a lot more than 10 bands that belong in the Rock Hall that are not in there, but we'll look at 10 of them in no specific order. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, kind of a misnomer, isn't it? Because they have country music in there, they have rap music, pop, R&B, a lot of things other than just rock and roll music. In fact, Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton and the Rock Hall of Fame. Dolly Parton felt so bad about getting inducted into the Rock Hall and not being a rock artist that she went back and after the fact recorded a rock album. Well, here's some bands that do deserve to be in there. How about Thin Lizzy? Eligible since 1996, only been nominated once, but I would say they will eventually get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Of course, Phil Lynott, bassist, showman, extraordinaire, songwriter, great rock and roll band with that twin guitar attack. And I actually bought one of their albums as one of my first rock albums. Now, I can't remember if Deep Purple Machine Head or Thin Lizzy Jailbreak was my very first rock album. It was one of those, though, and a great rock and roll album, great rock band that certainly deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Thin Lizzy. And also, how about Iron Maiden? Now, I looked at the list of those artists that are not yet in the Rock Hall, and I could not believe it, that Iron Maiden is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, what band is more deserving? All the great tours and albums and just the influence of this band. But for some reason, the Rock Hall just doesn't like to induct metal bands all that much. Now, they've been nominated 2 times and been eligible since 2005. So hopefully the doors to the Rock Hall will be open for Iron Maiden. Now, the next band on the list you might not agree with, but they are certainly one of the top influential bands in 70s rock. And that is New York Dolls. David Johansen, New York Dolls, part of that 70s New York rock and roll scene. In fact, they were one of the prime influences with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley when they were forming Kiss. They wanted to be like the New York Dolls. So they looked at their stage presence, their stage show, and makeup and glam dressing, the way they dressed, and kind of modeled themselves after the New York Dolls, just amped it up a bit. New York Dolls eligible since 1999, nominated 3 times. I would say they will eventually get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The next band, how about the Smiths? The Smiths, kind of a love 'em or hate 'em group. Perhaps you've never heard anything by the Smiths. I would encourage you to go back and listen to something by them and see if you like them. They are definitely a unique sound. Johnny Marr with that kind of jingle jangle guitar sound, and the songs they wrote with different chord progressions and just very original. And of course, you can't forget Morrissey, Stephen Miles Morrissey. Very kind of, for lack of a better word, whiny kind of vocal. But very expressive and just intelligent lyrics. The Smiths, eligible since 2009 and nominated twice so far to be in the Rock Hall of Fame. Now, as we said earlier, the Rock Hall kind of takes their good old time about getting metal and hard rock bands inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Another case of that is with Motorhead. And Lemmy Kilmister, of course, bass player, singer, unique talent, was with the band, space rock band Hawkwind before he formed Motorhead, even named them after a Hawkwind song. Also, you had Fast Eddie Clarke and drummer Phil, yes, Filthy Animal Taylor and the classic trio lineup of Motorhead. Eligible since 2002, just nominated once, but they influenced all things hard rock and heavy metal just by being themselves. Motorhead, not yet in the Rock Hall of Fame. The next one, Warren Zevon, one of those singer-songwriters that is a musician's musician. A lot of people know about him. A lot of people consider him a one-hit wonder for the song you always hear around Halloween and Werewolves of London. But he has so much more to his credit. And Randy Newman's already in there. Why not Warren Zevon? Certainly deserving of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Eligible since 1994. Just been nominated once so far. That could go either way. I could see him perhaps never getting in the Rock Hall. And speaking of which, this next band, just because of their relationship with Jan Wenner, who is the main guy at the Rock Hall with Rolling Stone magazine, he and Grand Funk just do not get along. It started way back when with his reviews of Grand Funk Records, Grand Funk Railroad. I mean, they were as big as Zeppelin during their heyday, you might argue. Sold out New York's Shea Stadium in under 72 hours, reportedly breaking the Beatles record and how quick they sold it out. From 1969 to 1972, they were huge. Mark Farner, Mel Shocker, Don Brewer had 7 albums in the top 30, with 4 of them making all the way into the top 10. Grand Funk Railroad, some kind of wonderful. Of course, their remake of the Locomotion were an American band. So many classics. Eligible since 1995, nominated 0 times, and very unlikely, as long as Mr. Winter heads up the Rock Hall, very unlikely that they will ever get in there. Quite different than the other bands we've talked about so far, and that is Devo. Yes, Devo from the rubber capital, Akron, Ohio. Mark Mothersbaugh really getting people's attention in the late 70s, early 80s when they hit the scene. There wasn't anything quite like Devo with those flower pot hats and their music, their unique interpretation of the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction deserved notice. Of course, their big hit, Whip It, but they were just selling out concerts everywhere they went, and still out there doing their thing. Nominated 3 times, eligible since 2003. This is the kind of band that the Rock Hall kind of leans towards. So I am surprised they're not in there already, and would not be surprised if they don't get inducted sometime soon. And finally, the first band I saw in concert started my rock and roll experience back in 1977, and that was Kansas. Saw Kansas with Nazareth opening for them on the Point of No Return tour. Kansas, so far, not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. However, they were inducted into the Kansas Hall of Fame and Georgia Music Hall of Fame in 2015. Some other bands for your consideration, extra ones that are not really on the list. How about Boston? Styx, Lou Reed, Joe Cocker. And I know a lot of people called this band the Prefab Four, but they were actually musicians. They didn't start out that way. They started out as TV actors, had some musical talent, but eventually wanted to do their own music. Of course, talking about the Monkees. And even Wolfman Jack, how about him as a non-performer? He'd be a nice addition to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, be sure to go ahead and hit that bell so you'll be notified when we have more music meanderings pop up. And also subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel and be sure to leave your comment. Who do you think deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?